Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to show you a boss guide you guys have probably been waiting for, and that would be the Bone Boy himself, Skeletron. Now buckle your seatbelts extra tight and get some soda and spare ribs. Get it? Because you're eating spare ribs, and skeletons have ribs? Somebody needs to stop me because I'm making so many humorous jokes. No need to tell me I'm funny because I already know. But anyways, make sure to subscribe and like. Now let's defeat Skeletron. Okay, so you have a bone to pick with Skeletron, but how do you even summon him? Luckily for this video, I'm not going to have to go in depth with a bunch of different crafting ingredients because this guy's pretty simple. On every world, a structure called the dungeon will spawn in your world. It's usually close to the beach and on the opposite side of the world from the jungle. At this dungeon, an NPC called the Old Man will spawn. He doesn't do anything at day, but at night, you can ask him about his curse if you press the curse button in his dialogue. Upon pressing this button, Skeletron will spawn. This is pretty problematic because this means that Skeletron will spawn in the exact spot where the Old Man NPC was. You may be wondering, why is this so bad? That's because you can only stand a certain distance away from the Old Man NPC to speak to him. And if Skeletron spawns exactly where that old man was, well, let's just say he's gonna be on your tail. Bone. Congrats! Now you know how to summon Skeletron. But there's just one problem. You don't have an arena. Don't worry though, because I'll tell you exactly what to do. Okay, first of all, there's something crucial you'll need for this arena or else you're dead as bones. This crucial thing would be a rope, or basically any opening that leads up to your arena. And I cannot emphasize this enough. Make it very accessible. This is because, like I said earlier, Skeletron will basically spawn right on top of you. So you need a quick escape rope to access your arena, which will be right on top of the dungeon. That leads us to the steps to creating the actual arena. For this arena, you're going to want to build it on top of the dungeon so you can have a lot of space to build it. I'd recommend having a wider arena than it is tall. This is because Skeletron will be mostly hovering above you, and you need lots of room to jump between his arms if you get stuck. Also, add walls to either side of your arena, because if you don't, you could very possibly fall off just because Skeletron is very good at overwhelming you. Also with walls, you can grapple to them in order to get up and around his head or hands. As you can tell, most of this fight is based on maneuverability. Now that you have your arena set up, you can add some buff items to help you during the fight. The easiest and most accessible buff item would be the campfire. You can maybe slide through without other buff items, but you should at least have a campfire for some life regen because they're so easy to get. Next is the Heart Lantern, which is basically a better version of the campfire. Its added life regen does stack with the campfire. Now for the Bass Statue, which is found in the underground desert. It is a little tricky to obtain because of the underground desert's dangerousness, but it's worth to get because of the added defense. Next is none other than the Gnome, which gives you a secret modifier, Luck. These guys are found in living trees and turn into objects when they're exposed to sunlight. Now we have Sunflowers, which decrease mob spawns. Skeletron is a boss that can only be summoned at night, which if you know anything about the night, it's dangerous. Lastly is the Star in a Bottle, which is strictly for mage players. This is because it regenerates mana. Boom. Now you have a sick arena to fight Skeletron. But now it's time to get to the juice of this video. That being your loadout, starting with armor. You'll be glad to hear me say this about the armor and weapons, but it isn't going to be the same as the previous 3 bosses. Yeah, I know. You won't have to stick to that cheap armor you've been using this entire time. Instead, you're going to have something completely new, starting with melee. For melee, an option you could probably pass by with is the Crimson or Shadow armor, but if you want to stay safe and get the best option, go for Molten armor. But beware, because you can only obtain Molten armor by going to the underworld. Another thing, you might want to get Molten armor anyways, because you're going to need it later. Next is ranged, where you'd have to go with Shadow or Crimson armor. There is no better option. Now for mage, where the best option is Meteor armor. Nothing else, it's the best. Finally is summoner, where I'd try to get bee armor. The thing about bee armor though, is that you can only get it after you've killed the Queen Bee boss, which is around the same difficulty as Skeletron. If you haven't defeated the bee, my next tutorial will be on her. And the second best armor option is just about as good as bee armor, that being obsidian armor. Great, now you got all the armor you need. Tiny problem though, you still need a weapon. No worries, because I'll tell you exactly what you need. Okay, this is a big moment. It's time for weapons. I'll cut to the chase. Let's just start with melee. Usually for melee, this boss fight is pretty easy. That's because you have a godsend of a sword to help you, the Volcano, formerly the Fiery Greatsword. Now listen when I tell you this sword will shred Skeletron to bits. Not only does it do a lot of damage, but it explodes on impact, which does an insane amount of damage to Skellybone's hands when they're swinging towards you. An alternative option, which is fine for this boss, is the Flamerang, which is a fiery boomerang that does pretty good damage. Next is the range class, where the best option is probably just the Molten Fury with Hellfire arrows. You could also throw grenades for some extra damage, but you don't need to bother. Now for Mage, where you could either get the Demon Scythe or the Grey Zappinator, the Demon Scythe being a little harder to obtain. Finally, of course, is Summoner, where I may have lied a bit. Remember when I said that there would be finally completely new weapons for this boss? Well, that's only half true here, because you're going to need the Snapthorn Whip again, but instead of the Flank Staff, you're going to get the Imp Staff. That's all for weapons. Now onto your helping tools, accessories. Time to get accessorizing. These first accessories I'm going to be telling you are useful for all classes, so listen here. To start, get at a minimum lightning boots, or a better version of it like Terra Spark boots. Also, get a horseshoe balloon variant, preferably the bundle of horseshoe balloons. Get fledgling wings to increase your flying ability. For health regeneration, get the Band of Regeneration. Also, get the Shark Tooth necklace. And if you've defeated the Queen Bee, get the Stinger necklace. Also, to climb on walls, you could get Tiger climbing gear, or one of its better variants like Frog gear. Some Expert and Master Mode exclusive accessories would include the Shield of Cthulhu, and the Worm Scarf or the Brain of Confusion. Now for class-specific accessories, starting with Melee. Melee would want to get Feral Claws to have a higher damage output on melee weapons and allow auto swing. For Mage, get the Mana Regeneration Band, also have a Mana Flower and Celestial Cuffs. And Summoner, you may want to try out the Old One's Army event to get the Apprentice's Scarf and the Squire's Shield. If you have defeated Queen Bee, get the Pygmy Necklace. For all accessories, make sure you get a good reforge on them from the Goblin Tinkerer. Now we are on to our final subject you're going to need to defeat Skeletron, and that would be potions. Let's take a gander. Okay, about potions. In Classic mode, most of them are not required, but in Expert and Master, potions are a must-have. So before all you Classicers start abandoning ship, let me tell you what potions you need. No matter what class or difficulty, always bring health potions, and if you're Mage, get mana potions. Before I head on to the rest of the potions, those who are playing Classic, you still might find this segment useful. If you want to be as safe as possible, consider seeing what potions you could bring. Some potions that are going to be the most important to battle include Swiftness, Thorns, Regen, Endurance, Iron Skin, Wrath or Rage, Shine, Heart Reach, Invisibility, Inferno, and Titan. You probably won't need all the potions I just listed, but it's good to at least have some. Oh, and also, bring a food item of any kind because it'll buff your stats on most of everything. Along with that, if you're playing multiplayer, bring wormhole potions so that you can teleport to other players if you die. Now for class-specific options. Range, bring archery potions and ammo reservation potions. Mage, bring magic power potions and magic regeneration potions. Summoner, bring summoning potions. If you have defeated the Queen Bee, you can get a subclass of potion called Flasks. Flasks are mainly useful for melee and summoner players. Two good flasks of choice are the Flask of Poison and the Flask of Fire. Finally, are click to buff items, such as the Sharpening Station for melee, the Ammo Box for ranged, and the War Table for summoner. Finally, Skeletron is now even more dead than he already was. But of course, a boss doesn't go without their drops. For this segment, I'm going to skip the percentages for drops you probably don't care about, and focus on the useful stuff. For his drops, Skeletron drops healing potions and 12 gold. He also drops Chippy's Couch, and the Skeletron trophy for a 10% chance. In Expert and Master mode, he always drops the Bone Glove. Also, he has a 33% chance to drop only one of these items when he's killed: the Skeletron Mask, the Skeletron Hand, and the Book of Skulls. In Master, he drops the Skeletron Relic and a 25% chance to drop the Possessed Skull Pet. That's everything you need to know about his drops. Now on to some extra information about the boss. Alright, here's some extra information for you. The only way you can access the dungeon is by killing Skeletron. And you may be thinking, well, what's stopping me from walking right in? Once you go below Y level 0 in the dungeon, Skeletron's giant flying head will come in and insta-kill you. Remember that old man in the dungeon who turns into Skeletron? Well, once you defeat Skeletron, the old man is going to join your village as the Clothier. The Clothier is not exactly the most popular NPC, because he sells clothing and that's about it. Once you go into the dungeon, you're probably going to find the Mechanic, also an NPC. The Mechanic is way more useful and sells numerous supplies dealing with wiring and other mechanic-y stuff. Back to the dungeon, inside you will find chests. Just one problem though, they're locked. But don't worry, there are many different things in the dungeon that contain keys, like slimes, skeletons, and chests. I think I might have already mentioned this, but Skeletron can only be fought at night. At day, he despawns. Anyways, that's it for extra information, and the end of the video. If you like my content, please consider subscribing and liking. I'm trying to get 100 subscribers, so please help me out. Thank you for watching, guys, and see you soon.